Since 1920, women have been able to vote. Say what? You mean before that women couldn't vote? Yes, it's true. Since 1848, women have been formally asking to have the same rights as men, the right to vote, but time after time the answers to their requests have been no. Many women protested this injustice by marching in parades. Many of these marches led to women being arrested and abused. One such protest was in 1913. This protest went past the White House. Many women were wrongly arrested that night. They beat Lucy Burns, chained her hands to cell bars above her head, and left her hanging, all through the night, bleeding and gasping for air. When one of the leaders, Alice Paul, embarked on a hunger strike, they tied her to a chair, forced a tube down her throat, and poured liquid into her until she vomited. She was tortured like this for many weeks until word was smuggled out to the press. There was a brave woman, her name was Susan B. Anthony. She was one of the first people to do this. She was born in 1806 and was way ahead of her time. At the age of 17, she began fighting against the injustice of slavery and collecting petitions against slavery and giving them to the House of Representatives. In 1852, she made her first speech for women's rights convention in New York. She attended every convention afterwards and was asked to be president in 1852. During one such meeting, she asked the question, "Where under our Declaration of Independence does the Saxon man have the power, get his power to deprive all women and Negroes of their inalienable rights?" In 1868, she published a journal called The Revolution. Their motto was, "The true republic, men, their rights, and nothing more. Women, their rights, but nothing less." In 1869, she and Elizabeth Cady Stanton founded the National Women's Suffrage Association. Elizabeth was another strong woman who fought for the women's suffrage. In 1872, Susan was arrested for voting in the presidential election. 7 months later, she was tried in court. She testified for herself using the recently adopted 14th Amendment in her arguments, stating that the 14th Amendment is what gave her the right to vote. The 14th Amendment states that, in part, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of the liberty or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Sadly, she was fined $100, but she promised never to pay $1 of that fine, and a promise which she kept. Unfortunately, she had died before the passage of the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment is what gave the women the right to vote. She was once asked if women would ever be allowed to vote. She answered by saying, "It will come, but I shall not see it. It is inevitable. We can no more deny forever the right of self-government to one half our people than we could keep the Negro forever in bondage. It will not be wrought by the same disrupting forces that freed the slaves, but not come it will, and I believe within generation." As a girl, I am very grateful for these women who lived before me that sacrificed their lives and their dignity so that I could have the right to vote. This is a poster from the early 1900s that really struck me. Women bring all voters into the world. This really struck me because of how true and honest it is. When I'm 18, I promised to vote in every single election after that, during my life. It is the least I could do to thank all of these wonderful women for what they did for me.